My name is Adam Kanal, and I am a collaborative composer. Join me in the search for a career in classical music. This is the Making Noise podcast.
It's time for everything, you know?
Either way, I think it's going to be good.
I'm excited.
Can you see, is it recording? Can you see that?
I see it. I can watch you whether you're, recording me or not. So you can't really pull any, sneaky attacks on me.
I don't want to try to do that, but although I do find that a lot of fun to do.
Right. Yeah. No, they can't pull any shady stuff on here.
No. Zoom is good like that for the most part, I think. I don't know.
I think it is.
You said you don't really use Zoom much. Do you use something different or?
I don't do a whole lot of like virtual things. Work is all face to face. And then if I'm like chatting with friends who are not here, I use most of them have iPhones, so I pretty much exclusively FaceTime.
Oh yeah. Well, that makes it incredibly easy then.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people. I have an iPad, but not an iPhone. Well, actually, you can still FaceTime on an iPad, right?
Yeah, you totally can.
See, I can be one of those people then.
You could. Yeah, I use it. Literally, Zoom is on my computer because I use it for my life coaching sessions. So I use it once a month.
That's awesome.
Get the invitation, and then I just hit the link, and I'm in. I've never set up my own like meeting or anything with Zoom.
How long have you been doing life coaching sessions? That sounds really interesting.
So it started as therapy, actually. So while I was in my master's at Bowling Green, that year that I was off, so your last year when I was supposed to graduate with you, so that was my leave of absence year, I started therapy with the same guy I'm seeing now, but we've transitioned into life coaching because we're across state lines, and I really only see him once a month for maintenance and then like in emergencies. And it's counseling and life coaching are a little different because like some of the stuff we talk about is not nearly the same as when I was in like actual counseling therapy. Now it's just more of like concepts and like day-to-day functioning kind of things. We still talk a little bit about coping skills, but we don't really get much into like if we're talking about anxiety, we'll still talk about anxiety as a concept, but we aren't talking about like diagnosing anyone or possibly diagnosing anyone, me, with anything, So it's really interesting. It was kind of a gradual, I think, because I've been seeing the same person for it all. It was super easy to gradually move into life coaching because we already had this like rapport from counseling. So, and then really the life coaching started after basic training. So I'd been gone for 10 weeks. I started AIT, so Advanced Individual Training, after I enlisted in the Army. So I was there, and when I was in AIT, I had my phone again. And basic training was just this crazy experience of like completely being taken out of the world. It's like the only thing. Sorry, allergies are bad. I don't have the Rona. So the only thing when you're basic training are like the four walls around you, and if you go outside, and the PT and the drill sergeant's yelling, and like the craziness that is basic training. Like you don't have access to the outside world. So it was really crazy.
How long did that go on for?
So basic training itself is 9 weeks and 4 days for the Army. And but when you get there, you're in a reception period, which can be anywhere from like 3 days to a whole week. Mine was exactly a week, maybe a couple days longer than a week, because I fell like in a weekend and there was like a long week. It was super weird. So you're not actually in training at that point. You're they call in processing. So you get there and they're doing all your medical stuff. You're getting your shots. You're getting your ID. The guys get their haircut. You're getting dental records started. Just kind of anything that the military needs from you, they're doing it right there. Getting your glasses, issuing uniforms, all that kind of like admin kind of stuff. Setting up your pay, that's important. Set up your pay. You get paid in basic training, and it's awesome because you're not spending any money.
Oh, beautiful.
So that for me was a pretty much exactly a week, if I remember correctly, and they call it shipping you to basic training. So you're staying on the same installation. So I was at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and I never moved. I went from the little area that was reception, and they put us all on a bus. And that's the first time you see like your drill sergeants, because there are drill sergeants at the reception area, but they're not the drill sergeants you have for your training period. So that's the first time you see your drill sergeants, and they're quiet and they're just standing on the bus, arms crossed. You're just like, oh shit, what have I done?
Am I allowed to talk to you?
No, it's terrifying. It's super scary.
Oh my God.
But then they ship you off to basic training, so they move you to a different area, and that's where your training starts. So that's 9 weeks and 4 days. I had a very unfortunate situation, though, where while I was there, I was supposed to graduate on September 7th, 2019, and that is when Hurricane Dorian hit that side of the United States. So like 2 days before I'm supposed to graduate, my mom's supposed to like come and see me. I have to call her and be like, yeah, you can't, they're canceling everything, like don't get on the airplane. So it was crazy. So then because of that, I got stuck there a little bit longer. I ended up being there, it was only 2 days longer than I was supposed to be in basic training, but I also didn't like get my days with my family or get to like leave and go do things. So I was like in the basic training area for 4 days longer than I was supposed to be. So it was crazy. It was absolute craziness. I don't remember how we got on that tangent though.
Well, it was you mentioned how there's the
we were
period...
talking about life coaching.
Yeah, but you had mentioned about the period during basic training where you have no contact with the outside world.
Yeah.
So and I asked about that.
Yeah. My only contact with the outside world is like old school writing letters, like
I love it.
Just sitting up late at night with your flashlight, like you're not supposed to be awake. You're just like, dear mom, everything is crazy. Please save me. Because like you don't always have a lot of time to write. You don't have time to write during the day. Like you're in training, you're up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, really, you're up at like 3:30 in the morning. And you're busy. It's this hurry up and wait thing is a really common thing that you hear about the military, because like there's a lot of there are a lot of moments where you're kind of sitting around, because there are 250 people in your little, they call it our company and our area that they're training. So like if we're out at the range, 250 people have to shoot and qualify on their weapon. So that's like a full day of I've shot, I've qualified, now I just have to wait for 249 other people to do the same. Which takes full days. But when you're there doing those things, like you're not allowed to be writing letters and doing things like that, because you have to be paying attention, because you're around live ammo and like weapons, and like it's a real safety thing, So you're trying to write your letters, and you're like you get an hour of personal time every evening after dinner. So you're like, how many letters can I write in this hour? But you also want to like take a shower, and you got to get in the shower first, because there's 65 other girls in this bay, and there's only 24 showers. So you're really learning how to manage your time, because you aren't getting a ton of personal time, especially at the beginning. So I'm just like writing letters, like, okay, I can stay up 15 minutes past, just hope that no one comes and sees me. So you like turn your light on under your covers, and you're just like writing. That's the only contact I had with the outside world, except for once every 3 weeks, I did get my cell phone for like 5 minutes, something silly to call my mom. But I don't know what's happening in the news. I don't know, I don't know anything. And before you join the military, you kind of take advantage of the fact that you have like so much available to you, like at all times. So like if you're having a bad day, you just call up your friends, be like, hey, like, when we were at BGSU, like if we were having a bad day, be like, yo, y'all want to go hit up like jazz night,
Yeah.
So like you don't have that when you're in basic training. You're having a bad day, like you better figure something out and figure out how to stop having a bad day. And everyone around you, like, they're not all really your friends. These are your battle buddies, and like, I got your back kind of people. But I had a hard time being there as old as I am. I was 29 when I was going through basic training, and most other people in basic training were 17, still in high school there in the summer before their senior year, or 18 just out of high school. So,
Mhm.
and almost all of them doing completely different jobs than I was doing, which I'm going into the band. I've been to college already. They're, joining the military as a means to get themselves into college. A lot of them. There are a few people that are older, or I had a few people in the band. So like those become your super close friends. But it's not the same as like, we need to go decompress. You don't get that in basic training. So when I got out, I was like, Mike, that's my life coach's name. I gotta talk. Like, can we figure something out? So we've worked out this life coaching situation. So we do it all over Zoom. It's super cool. It's a pretty good situation. I think it's super helpful, especially with like COVID happening and like the anxieties and stress of being in the military in the middle of like a really weird political climate, and the stresses of going from like I only do music all day at school to like, oh, I'm a soldier also now, and like I'm trying to figure out all these new things, moving to a completely new city with a bunch of people I don't know, people coming and going. That's a big thing in the Army because we're changing duty stations all the time. So it's like being able to just roll with things sometimes can get overwhelming. So it's super nice to just be like, I have a life coach. I know I'm going to see him in a week. Like, I've got all these things going on in my personal life. We can hash it out, and then I'll be good to go. So it's good stuff.
That's I find this incredibly fascinating. I mean, I want to make sure my phone isn't going to go off, so I'm going to silence that and do that whole
I mean, if it
shebang.
goes off, it better be like Jonathan or someone. I mean, just like, do I get to phone a friend at any point? If you ask me anything really hard, she'll like, I Claire.
We'll give Claire a call. What happened that one night when we were at
Yeah.
Stones? All right, I'm gonna say I'm gonna be able to go for about until 6:30 or so. So for you, I guess that's 7:30, right?
No, I'm behind you an hour.
Oh, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm in that mountain time.
Ooh, living the mountain lifestyle. All right.
That fancy mountain. I got a beautiful mountain. You can't see it from my window. From my window, I have a beautiful view of a basketball court.
Mm.
Actually, I don't. Yeah, that's what I got out of this window.
You're teasing the people, Natalie.
It's gorgeous. It's got 2 hoops.
Oof.
And then all the markings on the ground
That's a unique thing. You don't see that every day.
You don't. You don't.
I so with I'm still kind of curious with like what you were saying about being at basic training and then coming out of it. And like, please divulge as much as you want, or like you can be like, no, dude, shut the hell up. I don't want to talk about that.
No, we can talk about whatever you want. It's your podcast. You make the rules, man.
I try. I don't know. I'm kind of shooting at the hip here, but so what was like for 29 years of life, right? You've spent, well, not even 29 years, but for the however long we've had social media and smartphones and stuff, like you've had that up until you were 29 and in basic training. After coming out of basic training, where you went through that period, what was it, like essentially 10 weeks?
I think total it was like 11 and a half weeks that I didn't have my phone.
That's a quarter of a year. That's more, isn't that more than a quarter of a year?
It's about 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah.
Okay, so for like 3 months, you didn't have any like really much contact as you previously had, like the access to your phone. What was it like when you came back into the world again, where you had that access? Like, was there some sort of switch or like that went off where you're like, what am I doing? Or I'm glad to have this, or I don't know, like.
I don't remember having the thought of like, oh, I don't want this anymore, but I do remember it being easier to just like have it in my backpack during the day while I was training and like not being so attached to it all the time. I have since gone right back into my daily 21st century phone in my hand all the time. But like at first, it was like, cool, I just got my phone in my backpack and I'll pull it out if I need it. And it wasn't really an issue. But I was also like incredibly thankful to be able to just like call my mom at the end of the day, because not every AIT in the Army has that privilege to be able to do that. And as a soldier in training, that is something that literally is a privilege. So had anyone done anything like not responsible, that's something that very easily could have been taken from us. So I think that the Army does this incredible job of like one, teaching responsibility as a group, and teaching you to work as a team, and like if specialist whatever messes up, like I mess up, so we got to keep each other accountable. So there were a lot of conversations within us, like as a group, it'd be like, like we saw you on your phone a lot in the practice room, and like if someone walks by, they're gonna get us, and like we're all gonna lose our phones. So like those conversations happened a lot, and we had a really awesome in my AIT class. We had like 60 of us total, and it's a mix of people that are going into the active duty military, which is what I do, into the National Guard. So each state has their own National Guard band, and then there are a few reserve bands. So there's this mixture of people at AIT. Most of the people going into the active duty sector are people who have bachelor's or master's, and closer to my age, anywhere from like, actually some of them were maybe 22, 23, 24. But most of the National Guard soldiers were just out of high school or like in their freshman, sophomore years of college, and doing the National Guard thing to help them pay for college, which I think is an incredible. I wish I would have known about that before I went to college, because like they're not paying a cent, they're making money, and they're getting to do like a really cool job while they're in college. It's a super cool thing, and I really wish I would have known about it. But there's this whole mixture of people, so like getting, like me as a 29-year-old to get this, 18-year-old kid who's like grown up completely differently than I have, and is from a completely different part of the country, to come together and like be a team and have these same goals is like it was awesome. And we had this really great group. I know sometimes the dynamics don't always work, but my class had this just really great rapport with each other, and we worked really hard together, and it was a super special time. It was really exciting.
That's so interesting. I love one of the things that I'm so curious about, and I'm really you're getting into it right now. Is I've heard a bunch. What's his name? Jocko Willings or Jocko Wilkins or something.
Ah.
He has this podcast, and he's like an ex Navy SEAL or something. I don't know, but he's like one of those dudes that wakes up at like 4 a.m. and works out right away, and like he has his whole day like planned out and everything.
Yeah, like real routine.
Yeah, and he talks a lot of, like I've heard maybe 2 or 3 of his podcasts, but in each one he talks about how in the Army or military or Navy, whatever it is, there's a lot of like camaraderie, and like he uses the terms a lot, like my brothers and sisters,
Mm-hmm.
like
like brothers in arms is like a common one. So that's even like I'm in the Army, but like I know someone in the Marine band. Like we're brothers and sisters in arms, because we're both in the military. We're just in different branches. But yeah, so that's super common.
So could you maybe talk a little bit to that about like your experience or understanding of it, and like where you are right now, and does that manifest in your daily, like what you do for your job and stuff? Or
Yeah, absolutely. It's super interesting. So when you're in basic training and you're learning these things and like starting to become like the Army, as soldiers together. A lot of the conversation surrounding that is like, you could be in combat next to this person someday. And that's the point of it, honestly, is like, if you there's at, and this isn't me like promoting anything, but like, if you're thinking about like, we're sending these 6 people to go complete a mission in a war, like, you want them to be, whether they like each other or not, to be able to work as a team and complete that mission, because you want all 6 of them to come back alive. And if they're not working as a team, whether they like each other or not, the likelihood of that happening is low, right? And so, like, in basic training, the conversation really surrounds combat, because that's what as a soldier, like, that's in my soldier's creed, like, that's what we are as soldiers. But on the base level of it, like, just back home, and I haven't been to combat, but and I don't imagine I ever will, but even if I just deploy, I could be in dangerous areas, since we were always looking out for each other that way, making sure that we're safe all the time. But just within my job on a day-to-day, this is a situation that's happening like literally right now as you and I are talking. I have a mission on Monday morning with my woodwind quintet. We are playing at I don't think it's a change of command. We're playing a ceremony though, so we've rehearsed for the ceremony this week. We have the next 3 days off, so none of the band is going to be there the next 3 days because it's the weekend, and tomorrow's what we call a day of no scheduled activities. It's every now and then we get like a random one for safety. We've done really well, so we get one tomorrow. It's pretty exciting. So we got a text message today that was like, hey, this mission is actually outdoors. We could need sound support, or we might need to switch MPTs, so musical performance team. That's what we call like small chamber groups. So I'm in the woodwind quintet. If we play outside and it's a little cold, it's a little hard to do, but also playing outside, we're not that loud for these ceremonies. So typically, some sort of brass quintet's going to be the better choice for that. So we could have just been like, oh yeah, we're not going to do it, like, let the brass quintet figure it out, even though we're not going to be at work tomorrow, and then it's the weekend, and this mission's Monday morning. But, you're like looking out for your battle buddies, like, we're not going to do that to them and put them under this strain. Like, we're just going to figure it out, adapt and overcome. So we're just figuring it out. So, like, it's it can be applied to any situation. So at the most intense situation, we're in combat, and this is my battle buddy, and I don't care who this is, we're wearing this uniform, I got your back, let's go. Or as simple as, no, I'm not going to make some other ensemble like figure out how to do a mission in 3 days when we're not at work for the next 3 days.
That I legitimately love that. I love that whole like how do you say that? We're doing this thing like as a unit for the unit, like unit being everyone who's a part of what we do. And you're saying like the brass quintet, and I'm including them in that. Like, so by making the conscious decision that we're not going to pass this off to them, because then it makes their jobs a little bit harder, which then in turn could make you then look like a jerk, like, and so like shouldering the responsibility like for the whole team in a way. And
100%.
It makes so much sense when you're talking about having to go into combat and stuff, like like that you're trained in a way that you look out for each other, and regardless of what the reason is or anything, like what better reason to like have that camaraderie, or what more important reason to have camaraderie than when you're going into an instance of battle,
right,
like just knowing that this is the goal we have to hit, everything else doesn't matter, we have to do this, and whatever we need to do to get there, like to make sure that as a team we can do it, that's what we have to do.
So the Army is completely mission oriented. I mean, everything we do is like literally a performance is now called a mission in my life. So, back in my master's, you'd be like, oh, I'm super excited for this show. Like, oh yeah, I'm playing this show. I got this performance. I'm playing this recital. Like now I'm like, yeah, I got a mission on Monday, and then I forget, like, when I'm talking to you guys, I'm like, oh yeah, I got a mission this, and then you're just like, what? Dude, what's a mission? Like, oh yeah, I'm playing with my woodwind quintet,
Yeah.
You get into this lingo. You're like, yeah, the MPT. Oh, wait, hold on. They don't know what that is. Musical performance team. It's a small chamber group, but we're completely mission oriented. That's one of my favorite things about the Army. And and especially as a musician in the Army, I'm just like, I've always been this way. And now it's like my job. So it's super cool. But I always am like, all right, here's my goal. Now I got to make a list how to get to this goal. So that's just how it works in my job now. So I'm just like thriving in that. So I'm just like, here's the mission. Here are the things we need to do this mission. Let's go do it. Here are the people I need. Or if someone else is planning some sort of mission, then there's like, here's your role on that mission. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I'm in. So it's super. I thrive in that environment. So I love that part.
Yeah, I oh my God, that's fantastic. Are you saying that what happens in your work life informs your personal life in a way, or vice versa?
Maybe
By
a
saying
little
like
bit
the
of
list and
both.
everything? Or?
Yeah, so probably a little bit of both. Like I've always made lists, and you can ask my friend Gregory. We did our undergrad together in the flute studio, and I'll like text him and be like, I can't decide this thing, and I'll like have this list, and I go back and forth, and I have like all these lists, and he's like, you and your lists, So that's just like always been a part of my life. And I'm not saying like every single person in the Army makes lists. That's also like just how I help myself be able to break down missions, but like it's super helpful, and it like the structure in the Army it's kind of weird because like there's so much structure, but there's also so much change every day. So it's just like, oh, we're playing outdoors, do we need to change things? So like everyone would be able to just roll with it. It's not that like it wouldn't happen or it wouldn't happen well. If that was a thing that happened, everybody in my unit is like we just adapt and overcome. We just do the thing. But you're also just like constantly being like, oh, that changed, okay, and just rolling with it. But there's also so much structure. It's this weird place. The Army is a weird place.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've noticed that too with trying to find a time for us to do this podcast. Like,
I know.
and that's not a criticism either. I mean,
No.
I love that, like having that. I'm not great when it comes to just sudden change of plans. Like, I like if it's like something's planned and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're actually gonna do this. I'm like, I'm not ready for that. But
yeah, it's hard. It's a hard thing to like adapt to, but you just, I don't know. It just does that now. I'm just like, I'm not saying I don't complain when it happens, and I'm not saying it's like easy.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely still complain when it happens. It's definitely still like annoying sometimes, but like sometimes it is not avoidable, and you're just like, all right, I'm gonna do this next thing now.
Yeah,
this is okay, everything's fine.
well, and that's one of the things that made me so excited about having you on here, is because you're one of the only people I think I know who was in music school and then transitioned into the Army, and so I understand the like what we've been talking about, how it changes, there's like the sense of camaraderie within the Army, and like what you're saying, these missions and stuff like that. And so one of the things that I was wondering is at what point did the Army become an option for you? And what was it when you were like, was it an option and then you're like, I don't want to do that, but then one day you're like, you know what, I'm gonna do it? Or was it like you just found it and you're like, yeah, I'm doing that?
It's actually super funny. So like so I don't know how many people know this, but like my dad was in the Air Force, so I grew up around the Air Force. My dad and I don't really talk now, so maybe that's why a whole lot of people don't know that. And I got super lucky because he got restationed in San Antonio over and over, so I didn't have to move around a bunch when I was a kid. So we moved to San Antonio when I was in 3rd grade. He just kept getting restationed there until he retired. So I got to like grow up a normal life, and like as a military brat, usually you're moving every 3 years, but I got to stay in the same place with the same people. And San Antonio is where all of the Air Force does their basic training. So it's a huge military city. And there's a regional Air Force band in San Antonio. So I'd seen that band in I want to say they came to my high school, or I went and saw them do something in town. I'd seen them while I was in high school. I was like, man, that's pretty cool. It might be cool to be in the Air Force and be in the band. That might be cool. And then in college, they came a few times. Like the quintet came once. The tuba professor for like my first couple years, was actually an adjunct professor at UTSA and was a tuba player in that Air Force band. So it was kind of just something that was always there, and every now and then be like, that could be kind of cool. But it was never like that's what I want to do. And then I got super into the contemporary thing, and I was like, I'm gonna be a college professor. I'm gonna do the contemporary life. I'm gonna be a solo flute player. I'm gonna make it big. Like, here I go. Everyone, watch out for me. But still, watch out for me because I'm, a force to reckon with.
Yeah.
But, and then things got weird. Life never goes to plan. So I was married at the time. So my ex-husband actually got into BGSU first. And I was like, cool, I'll just work while you go to school, and then it's my turn. So the military completely left my mind at this point, because it was just like, well, I'm married, like we're making this work, however we'll make it work. I want my master's, and then I'm going to go get my doctorate. Like, we're both going to be college professors. We had this new dream. Military was never a thought anymore. And then, as life goes on and you get the relationship chunks, you're just like, I'm getting chunky, like I'm not eating really well, I'm not exercising anymore, so it's just like, I'm not fit enough to join the military if I wanted to. So that also becomes a thing. I just kind of fell into this like, I could never go to basic training. Like, that's not something I could do. Military me? Like, have you met me? I could never do that. I just like got into this weird place where I just like never felt like worthy's not the right word, but like I didn't feel like, not even just physically, but like mentally, like the military wasn't it's too hard, and I didn't want to do something hard. Like, what I was doing was hard enough, but like I didn't have to work out and do extra things for it. I just had to try really hard to be a really good musician. My master's got a little weird, like with my leave of absence, and I had a hand injury in the middle of it, and I got divorced in the middle of it, like all in the first semester of my master's degree. Like, all of my life is just literally coming to, it's exploding, So I had that leave of absence, and I was coming back for to finish out my master's degree. I was coming back playing the flute after being told I would never play professionally again. So it was like this like warrior triumphant. I'd been in therapy for a little while. I was doing a lot of work. I was like, I'm awesome. And I remember I was actually at my mom's house in San Antonio, and I had sent a ton of emails, like, I don't know, probably 4.8 million of them, to a bunch of programs, like all these flute professors, like, hey, like, I was looking at your website, so you got to have an assistantship open, like, I'm super interested. Just all these, like, I'm interested in your program, can you tell me a little bit about what happens there? Asking about all kinds, what you do when it's time to go get your next degree. Because, it was June. It was time to start practicing the music and getting the pre-screening stuff ready and get going. I just remember sending my last email, like closing my computer and just like hit super existential crisis mode. I just called Connor and I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to get my DMA, and now I don't know what to do. Because I'm in so much student loan debt. Because I had gotten divorced, I had to take out even more student loans than I'd planned for my master's. Like, I was like, if I don't go get my DMA, I can't be a flute professor. So maybe that's not what I want. But if I don't want to be a flute professor, like, what do I want to do? I don't know what to do. And he's like, it's okay. Like, take a breath. And we talked for a while, and the military came up, and I was like, nah, the military, that's not for me. That's not a thing. And he was like, you know how much debt you're in, right? And I was like, yeah, I just told you how much debt I'm in, like, that conversation. So that kind of planted the seed again. And I had this wonderful friend. We weren't friends yet at the time. Troy Palantonio, he at the time was a fife player in the fife and drum corps in Washington, D.C. And in my first year of my master's, he had come and done a masterclass. And I played in that masterclass, and he was awesome, like just super inspirational. But again, he was like, you guys should think about like military bands. It's actually a really great opportunity. And he talked to us a little bit about it. And I was like, nah, I could never go to basic training. Military ain't for me. Like, you met me, like so it's like, so when Connor like kind of replanted the seed, it was super weird because I was like just scrolling Facebook, and I saw a job position for the fife and drum corps post, and I was like, huh, let me reach out to Troy and ask some questions about the fife and drum corps. And I did, and he's like, actually, that's my job that's posted because I just won a job with the Army Field Band. So now he's in the Army Field Band. And I was like, man, I still don't know. Like, it just doesn't sound like it's for me. So Troy and I actually had a lot of really great conversations about what it is the Army is and the Army bands are. And he was actually in the regional bands, which is what I do, for 1 year before he won the fife and drum corps. So he has a little bit more experience with exactly what I do than like most anyone else that's going to be in those, they call them the special bands. So our DC bands, they still go to basic training, but they don't move around like I do. So, and our jobs are just a little bit different. They're a little more specialized up there. So we were having all these conversations. I'm still just like, man, I just don't know. So when I got back to Bowling Green after visiting my mom, I was like, the recruiting. Do you remember where the recruiting station is in Bowling Green?
It's on the intersection of Worcester and
see,
and Maine.
right there, because it's just there in your face all the time. I'm like, man, I don't know. I just don't think I could do it. Like I was like, I don't want to talk to the recruiters. Recruiters are shady people. My dad was a recruiter for the Air Force. I know recruiters are shady. I've seen it. I've heard the stories. I don't want to talk to those recruiters. I don't want to do. I don't know. School started back up, and the Connor and I had this conversation where I think this was like just the moment that was like, oh shit, yeah, I gotta get my shit together and just be real with myself, right? And so our conversation basically came down to like, you're good. You're a very good flute player. You're an incredible musician. But so is everyone else. Mm-hmm. What are you gonna do that is gonna make you win that job and not get into more debt and not put yourself in a position where it's not even worth it anymore? I was like, oh, yeah, like it was a hard conversation to have and a hard thing to hear. But I thank Connor all the time for just like being that real person. So many teachers are like, no, yeah, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. They just let their students do their thing. But he was just like, let's be real. Let's look at all the very real things in your life. Mm-hmm. Now, how are you going to make that happen? Here's an opportunity that sounds like, yeah, it might suck, but this other path sounds like it probably sucks too. So which suck do you want to do? Like, no, he didn't say that at all. But it was just like, truly think about like, what's going to make you happy and where are you going to get the most stability so that you can continue to be happy. And I was like, man, that's real. Like that conversation was just so real. And I went and I talked to a recruiter. I'm actually friends with my recruiter still. He's an incredible person. But I mean, I think a little bit of it was just like I walked in and I was like, okay, I want to join the Army. How do I do it? I will only be in the band. You can't make me do anything else. You put another job on the table, I'm out, kind of thing, you know? Oh, and he's not, so my recruiter is, he's a Cav Scout, so it's a combat arms job. And in the Army, you do what we call broadening assignments. And so something like I could do is I could go work at the schoolhouse where all the soldiers go train to be in the Army band. And I could work in supply there. I could be some sort of instructor there, or I could go work as the music liaison. So when you're joining the Army in the band, you have your local recruiter doing all your Army things, then you have your music liaison. There's one in each region of the country, and they're doing all your auditions and all your music things. So that's some kind of like broadening things I could do. I could also go into real Army and be a drill sergeant at basic training if I wanted to go a volunteer to do that, or go into recruiting. But pretty much, if you're trying to make a career out of the Army and do a full 20 years, you're going to do some sort of broadening assignment. And the most common ones for almost the rest of the Army are to go into recruiting and do a couple years recruiting, no matter what your job is, or to go and be a drill sergeant or some kind of instructor at one of the schools in your job. So he was doing this recruiting thing, and he's like, I don't like recruiting, but you're easy because you want in, but you're also difficult because, well, you're fat. You know? So I was like, yeah, let's go to the gym. So he was great. We worked out all the time, and like is always super, him and like the rest of the people in the office, we were always super motivated to get me out there. And I don't know what clicked. I was just like, yeah, this is what I want. It could have been the student loan repayment. It probably was, looking at $65,000 paid over 3 years towards my student loan debt. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Lord.
I want that.
I know. Well, and then on top of that is just like the financial stability, like talking to people who are in the Army, being like, okay, what do you do? Like, tell me about it. Actually, all of that sounds like a lot of fun, and like it's gonna work for me. And like, so was I financially motivated to start looking into it? Absolutely. I'm not gonna lie. Like, we all are. Like, that's why we go get jobs, But I don't think I could have made a better decision with my life, for sure.
I have to say, I mean, because we met at Bowling Green State University, right?
Yeah.
In grad school, and so
grad school's hard. It's a trap. Don't do it. Grad school's hard. It's a trap. Don't do it.
It is a whole thing. It is a whole thing. But like I knew you. We met before you started this whole journey.
Yeah, I was fat.
But I remember, like, you were saying how a moment ago you said how something clicked. And then all of a sudden you were driven and you were ready to do this thing. And I remember when you had mentioned that you were going to join the Army and stuff, and you there was, your demeanor was so different. Like,
yeah?
your attitude had it was, I don't even know how to explain it either. I just remember the couple times we had talked when you were riding your bicycle everywhere, to and from your apartment.
Yeah.
And you weren't a different person, but I don't know. You knew what you were gonna do, and you just did it. And
mission oriented.
Exactly.
Complete the mission. I was doing it before I enlisted.
But the thing is, too, and I don't think it's unfair or wrong, like what you said, that I totally did it for the money. I don't think that's a terrible thing to say at all. Which is part of the reason why I'm putting this whole doing this podcast, is to present to other people who are in this transition or in school as music students, to figure out, how can I do this? Like, what are some of the things that other people are doing? And like I said, your journey is unlike other people who I've spoken to and stuff. And so it's fantastic. I love hearing all this everything that you've done, what you've gone through, and where you are now. I like you're providing so much for people. I have no doubt. For me too.
Yeah. I think it's super cool because I would be lying to you if I said I will always be super musically fulfilled in my day job. Currently, I have this woodwind quintet that I play in here at this unit, and it's a traditional quintet, which doesn't happen everywhere. and we rock, man. Like we sound good. We vibe. Like, you know, it's I've been in a lot of chamber groups and a lot of really good ones. And this, I think, it has to be my favorite chamber group I've ever been in.
That's
If
awesome.
it's not, I can't think of another one. I just said that because I can't think of another one because I don't want to offend any other chamber group I've been in, because I love every chamber group I've ever been in. But I don't know, this one is just like, it's different. We vibe really well. Maybe just because it's the longest one I've played in, because, you know, things change so often in your masters. But I'm super musically fulfilled between that and like doing my own projects. But I know that won't always be the case. But what's super cool and unique about the Army is like, I'm super busy with my job, but like it's because I'm putting myself in positions to keep myself busy with projects that I really truly want to do. So I've gotten super into videography and photography because like at the band I have all these opportunities to do those things. So I'm creating like music videos for different ensembles at the unit. So like I'm getting to use different skill sets that I haven't really been able to use in the past. And I have the money to get the things I need to do those fun things. So like I'm doing some of this at the unit, and I've like yes, I've used some of my equipment, but the Army also eventually will help me like get the equipment I need for the unit. But I'm getting time to kind of experiment and learn at work with those groups, so that I also go out and do my own things with this stuff that's mine. Like my camera, I use it at work, but I also use it. It's my camera, and I go do all kinds of other projects that I try to anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I got to do that commission project that I did when quarantine first started. You know, I had plenty of time to be doing that at that time. So the Army kind of works in cycles. Like right now, I'm super busy with Army work, so I don't have a ton of time for my own personal projects because I'm just tired by the time I get home. But it's all stuff that I'm like super excited to be doing. So we're working on this huge holiday production, and we're like, it's a tour through El Paso, like holidays in El Paso. So we've taken every little chamber group and we've put them somewhere different in El Paso, and I'm like recording these groups and editing these videos together, and we're gonna do this whole concert just like touring El Paso and talking about different things in history. And like it's a super exciting project. That I wouldn't have been able to do that with, because I wouldn't have had the resources to do something that's cool just like out trying to freelance and make it, because I'd be so busy trying to freelance and make it, you know. And not that that's a bad path for anyone. That's just not a path that I don't like the hustle, you know. Like I need that stability financially, because then I don't have those anxieties. Like those are anxieties that I have trouble dealing with. But now that I don't have that, like I can focus all my attention onto creativity and making things and doing all these other things.
There's such a level of knowing yourself, like self-awareness, and I've said this a bunch of times in these episodes, I think it's true. Like what you're saying is there's a level of self-awareness you have to have in order to realize that, um, like you said, freelancing isn't for you, and by having a certain level of stability, you can focus your energies even deeper and more intensely on things that you're interested in creatively, like photography and videography.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, like the Army, it's not for everyone. I don't like practice my flute all day every day. And that's because I've put myself in a position at work and at the unit where I want to focus on some other things. But I am getting this really great opportunity to learn a lot more about sound reinforcement. So we do have a job in the band that is to be a sound engineer. So I'm getting to like, sometimes I get to go out with the rock band and like help run sound and live sound reinforcement with the rock band, you know. So like I get to go do cool things like that, because at some point in my career I might be at a unit that doesn't have a woodwind quintet, and I'll pretty much, my only like real utilization will be to play the piccolo in marching band and ceremonial band and concert band. We do a couple a year. Like that's what I'll be used for. And like I would be lying if I said that would be completely musically fulfilling, but I have the resources and the avenues to go do these other things that are going to keep me super occupied and like super excited about my job and super excited about life and like going and doing all these other cool things. And then if I'm, doing this stuff at work, then when I get home, because I have so much time now, it's crazy. When I first got here, I was like, oh, I get to leave and go home at 3:30 or 4:30 or 5, because usually if we don't have anything going on, they'll let us like go home at 3:30. It depends on your unit. Some units it's 5 o'clock, end of the day. But even then, like if I went home at 5 o'clock, it's like cool. I've practiced, I've worked out, I've done my work at work. It's 5 o'clock. I have an entire evening to myself. That never happens, Weekend hits and you're like, well, I am going to go practice because I want to play. I've worked out. I have a whole day to myself, like, that's never happened. It's crazy. So like just my mental health, like being able to take care of myself. And I don't necessarily, like I still have to like make sure I'm doing it. It's still something I have to consciously think about. But like if you compare my master's, like my life when I was in my master's to my life now, I'm financially stable. So I don't have to like spend time thinking about that. Do I still think about my money? Absolutely, because it would be silly not to. But like, I'm not worried about whether or not I'm going to eat tomorrow. I don't have to, in my master's, I had to like physically in my schedule put self-care time in my schedule. Now I'm just like, all right, 1700, I'm not working anymore. I'm going to go do me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the weekend. I'm not working anymore. I'm going to go do me. And it's just like my mental health everyone's still going to have bad days. Work's still going to get stressful. No job is perfect. Everyone's going to have their like, oh, this part of my job sucks. Like, yes, I still have to go be a soldier. So yeah, there are still some days that I just have to go sit out at the range and like be a soldier, and there's no music or instruments or anything out there. Like I'm a soldier and a musician. So there is that balance there. But I would, for me, in my journey, would rather be doing this. And I love being a soldier. So like, I'd rather be doing this and like being able to spend that time focusing on my creative opportunities and my self-care and like taking care of me and just living my best life and thriving than what I was doing, where I was like, it was too overwhelming for me. Like I didn't have those anchors like I do now.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Do you reflect on that often? Like how you have this stability and you look back 2-3 years ago and you're like, man, I can't believe I was in that position. Or like, do you ever have those sort of, self-reflections?
Yeah, I don't think of it as like, I can't believe I was in that position. I think of it as like, I'm so grateful for what I'm doing. Because I loved my journey to get here. There were some real just in the rocks shit days,
Yeah.
And some just like months of just like, I am never gonna be okay again. But I think like going through all that, like having to live my life the way that we lived our lives in our master's degrees, like that's not an easy thing to do. Get a master's degree in music. It's very hard. The people I met though, and like the things I got to do in that time, and as much as I learned about myself, I wouldn't be able to do what I do now if I wouldn't have done that. So I reflect on it in that way, being like, oh, I've handled an interpersonal relationship like this before. Let me think about how I handled it then. I can do it better now. It's like, and I just do it better. Even in my day-to-day, like even not going back as far as like my undergrad or my master's or just other things I've done, or like when I was working just at Starbucks. just like, I'm like, okay, last month I had this conversation with this person, and I think I could have a better, I could be nicer, or I could be more clear, I could be more direct. So like I do reflect a lot in my day-to-days, just in general.
Mm. That's yeah. I like what you just said too about uh, recognizing in certain instances when you're communicating with someone, like how you're communicating and what can you do to improve that communication. You know, like having more clarity. One thing for me that I'm actually working on, like even right now, is being concise.
It's hard.
It's
I go
hard.
on, and then you brought me on here, and I'm like, tangents. Let's do it. I love tangents. I could talk all day.
No, I love it. I mean, everything that you're saying, it's so there's so much in it that I think, like I said before, people are gonna get something out of, without a doubt. I particularly like hearing your journey of going through the army and stuff.
I think the reflection thing is super important too for like anyone that's like, if you're freelancing, if you're like doing it big in the contemporary music world, like me doing the army stuff, like you, so we do this thing in the army. We call them after action reviews, and I think like had I just had this structure um, in place for anything I did in my master's, I probably would have done even better in my master's in any point or any project I did. So in an after action review, you're like, okay, what was supposed to happen? What actually happened? What are we going to keep, like sustains? And what can we do better? Just like, it's so simple.
Yeah.
Like that's so, the concept of that is just like, so like, why don't we do that in everything we do in our lives? Like, let's take like a collaborative composer to performer situation, right? Like I think you and I kind of have this conversation anyway. I feel like you're a composer who does this anyway. You're like, yo, okay, cool. We wrote this piece. Or I wrote this piece. You played it. It's awesome. Like, what did you like? What do you like in the piece? You know, I feel like we have that. It's not so structured, but you and I have that conversation. But I've also worked with composers who are just like, here's your piece.
Do
Deuces.
it. Yeah.
And you're just like, what? You know, so it's just like, so like, why is it so hard? It's just, I don't know. It blows my mind that it's not something that we just think about, to like just have that super simple conversation. Like, yo, this really works really well. This didn't work so well. I'd love to work with you again. Let's focus on these things next time we work together. You know?
I think that's a brilliant process to have. Like you said, with everything in our lives. And one thing that's ringing in my mind right now, and I don't know if this applies or not, but I kind of wonder if it's one of those concepts it's simple, but it's not easy, you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's super true.
Like and I'm not saying that it is that, but I mean, because one thought I have is like when you go through this experience, whatever that thing is, like let's say it's, I don't know, putting a concert together, you know, it's your first time ever doing it by yourself, and like you have maybe some sort of team or something. And then by the end of it, it's like, all right, that was either awesome or like, all right, that sucked. I'm pissed off. You know? and often I think what happens is we ride that emotional wave regardless of if it's a positive or negative emotional experience.
That's true. Yeah, we do that as human beings, just like to our core.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, but we also like live in this. I think what makes it difficult to have those conversations is like we live in this society where it's like, oh, you're having an emotion. No, you can't do that. That's not right. Especially as males. Like males have it worse than females do. And I like having those hard conversations. Like, even if it's not a hard conversation, it's not a super difficult conversation for like if we're working on a piece together and me just to be like, yeah, I can't play that multiphonic, you know. But also if it's a piece that's been published and like played a few times and like I finally get the score, I'm like, cool, I'm gonna learn this piece. It's not a thing where I'm like, this composer's alive. Like I play music by living composers 80% of my life, you know, like that's like my focus of my, you know, being a flutist. I don't think like, oh, let me just email. I can't tell you how many times I like brought something in a Connor and he'd be like, well, did you ask the composer? Like, you know, that's a really smart idea, you know? So it doesn't even have to be like a super hard conversation. But we are so driven by emotion that like, I'm just frustrated that this is multiphonics not working. I cannot make the concept in my mind be like, oh, just ask them.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, well, I think what might be connected to that too, like, and I'm just, like, now my mind is just kind of going through this whole process of like trying to find connections, I guess. But oh, my timer's going off. That's okay.
Oh, I done it with my tangents.
Oh no, no, no. I'm in right now. But what was I gonna say? Oh, one thought with that is it's like where, you know, where we are our harshest critics.
Oh yes,
So
for
like
sure.
if we're having trouble doing something, then we will often blame ourselves. And so finding that solution to be like, oh well, let me just ask the person might not be obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thought I have too is like kind of what you were saying earlier about being in the army and like communicating with people saying like we need to like, hey, we saw you were on your cell phone, don't do that, like you're going to affect the whole unit, then we all can't be on our cell phones, you know. I think people in general, it's hard for anyone to want to have these conversations like was it ghosting people, right? It's like when you
Yeah.
start talking to someone that you're like you go on a date, maybe you got
Yeah.
coffee, and then you never respond to them. And like I get it. I don't agree with it. I don't think it should be, you know, but I feel like that is almost in line with this whole thing of like not confronting something that you're feeling, you know?
Yeah. And I could tell you like dating as an adult, being active duty army is like in the middle of a pandemic. I'm not dating because it's a pandemic, but like, but that's a real thing. Like before the pandemic thing was happening, I was like, I had gotten divorced and like, and then I was just focusing on my master's and focusing on like fixing me. And I was like, I don't want to be in a relationship. I never want to be in a relationship again, kind of thing, you know. But then I was like, you go through basic training. I've completely like transformed as a human. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to El Paso and I'm gonna like start putting myself out there and like see what I can make happen. I can't tell you how many times I've been ghosted. Like just like it's like I don't care. I've not invested in this, but you could like let me know.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
And I try really hard to not be that person, but I've done it also because there have been times where I'm just like I really don't feel like having that conversation, so I'm just not gonna do it.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
It's so much easier to go that route in like the short term, you know. Well, even long term too, but
yeah, because then like especially with someone or something, like if you're just talking about a project or a concept, like if you as a person haven't invested a lot into it, you're not really out, and you're not out anything, right? So like you're not thinking about how it's affecting that person or that project. You're just like, nah, bye. And you may not ever think about it again because you're not out anything. It's not impacting you at all.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That
So like
totally makes sense.
it's not, I wouldn't say ghosting or, you know, dipping out of a project early is like uh what's the word I'm looking for? Like a ill, you know, like we're not doing it to like hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a self-protective thing, you know, like when you're talking about like a project, you're like, that sounds like it's going to get really busy, or like it's starting to go in a direction that I'm not really interested in going. Or when you're talking about dating, you're like, this person's doing XYZ, that's like a red flag for me, or a deal breaker for me, but I don't feel like talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
You're just protecting yourself by like getting out.
Right. Yeah. Totally. That is what I say. Where I say I understand it and I get it. I think, and I've definitely done that before as well. As I get older, I think I try to operate more under transparency, you know, And
Yeah, definitely.
like one example is my girlfriend, who you know, Ava. When before we even before we had our first date, I explicitly said to her, like, I I don't remember what the wording was, but it was like, I want to go on a date with you. Like, I explicitly used the word date because I wanted to make it clear that I'm interested in getting to know you and making this more than just like, let's have coffee or drinks or something, you know?
Yeah.
And so the language, using that language was important for me to deliver that message. And
It's funny that you said like using the language, because like I don't mean to bring this back to the army for everything. I live outside of the army also, but something that like was said a lot while I was in basic training, the drill sergeants would always be like, "Words mean things, trainees. Words mean things," and that like has stuck with me for so long, because like it's true. Words really do mean things, and like they were saying it in a context of like, if I'm saying this word, it has multiple meanings, like be careful how you use this word with its multiple meanings. Like, also be
implication
clear,
matters.
be direct, like what you say matters. And it's so true, because it's just like, man, why didn't I ever think about it that way before? Like, it's so simple. Words mean things. It's so simple. Like, and like using direct language, because like, had you just been like, "Hey, you want to grab a coffee?" Like, you ask me if I want to go grab a coffee, and we're friends, you know.
Right.
Like, you're like, "Yeah, coffee's great. Let's go get coffee." And there's like no, and it's a thing that happens all the time. I've noticed, like, especially, you know, like dating as adults, you're just like, "Hey, you want to go do this thing? You want to go on a hike? You want to go get coffee? You want to go just hang out?" And you're just like, "Yeah." And then like someone just has no clue. It's like the other person has different intentions, you know. Like, "Oh, I thought we were just hanging out. Now I feel like an ass." You know.
There's too much ambiguity in it by just saying let's hang out or let's get coffee or let's go on a hike. That's not conveying the message that I am interested in you as a potential partner.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that could be applied to so many things, you know,
Yeah.
musically, or just like if you're teaching someone, you know, you got to be super. They teach you that when you're being taught how to teach, you know, like be concise, use your words, be direct. It's like, oh, why do I forget to do that all the time?
Yeah.
You know, or the thing where like I catch myself doing this all the time, like complaining. Like, did I ask for this thing that I'm like? I've tried to think of like a super simple example. Like, there was no strawberry milk when I got there. I'm drinking strawberry milk, so that's the first thing. No strawberry milk. Oh, did I ask anyone to bring strawberry milk to be there when I get there? You know, so it's just like I find myself doing that all the time. Just like, did I even ask for what I'm like needing? Am I asking to have my needs met, or am I just complaining?
Oh, I like that. I like that. That sounds so are you saying that in doing like what that sounds to me is like you're not blaming yourself, you're holding yourself accountable.
Yeah, 100. So let's say we're working in a chamber group together. I'm showing up to every rehearsal, and like Reese is not just has not been bringing his music, and he's messing up in the same spot, and we've been like, "Reese this spot, Reese this spot, Reese this spot," right? And he's just like, "Yeah, man, just doing his thing." Did I ever be like, "Yo, Reese, can you bring your score to the next rehearsal so we can like iron this out and figure out what's happening?" Or am I just complaining about it? And like, what if he's just not thinking I'm gonna bring the score? Like, what if he's just like, "No, we'll figure it out. It'll be okay." Like, he's probably got his own dialogue happening in his brain, and I've got my own dialogue happening over here. I never asked, "Hey, can you bring your score so we can have a solution?" Like, I'm not asking for solutions if I'm just complaining, you know? So I find myself doing that a lot. I'm just like, I'm really frustrated with how this is going. Well, did I ask for the solution? You know?
That's so fantastic. I love that you're adopting or whatever developing that mindset. I think the whole saying like perception is reality, right? So
Yeah.
what we perceive to be happening is real to us. And like you said, what Reese was perceiving, well, shout out to Reese. How do you say his last name? Is it
Burgess.
Burgess?
It's Burgundy. I changed it
Burgundy.
just now.
Like a fine wine.
Watch it not be Burgess, and I just made an absolute ass of
Ooh.
myself.
This is gonna be in the podcast, by the way. So
Yo, Reese.
But yeah, so you were saying like what you were perceiving to be real is real for you. What
Yeah.
he was perceiving to be real is real for him, right? But somewhere in the middle is the objective reality of what's actually happening, you know?
Yeah.
And figuring out how to find that spot, like, okay, like you were saying, opening up the dialogue to communicate what it is. Like, are we missing this downbeat here, or you know, whatever the
Yeah. That's like Reese came to every rehearsal prepared, by the way, for anyone watching this. Reese is a solid
Pro.
musician. He's
a pro.
He is a pro. But like, yeah, it's a something else I learned from Connor that I use all the time. Connor taught me so many things. So like, I love that I did my master's with Connor.
Real quick, I want to interrupt you. I apologize for doing that.
No, you're good.
Can you give context? Who's Connor?
Connor Nelson. Sorry, Connor Nelson. He's now at Wisconsin-Madison, flute professor there. Big shout out.
Beautiful man.
Just incredible flute player, incredible teacher. I was just one of the most important people in my life at a really crazy time, you know, like
we heard the story.
So well, even before just like that lesson, you know, he's got a couple like real anchors of just like, all right, I'm gonna go get my shit together now. But something he taught me, I think everyone could use this, is like when you're working in a group of people, and this is a chamber music setting that we talked about this in, but I have tried to apply this in like anytime I'm working on any kind of team. It's like people don't accept criticisms well. That causes emotion. So the example he used when he was teaching us this, I think we talked about this in like a studio class, was like, this chord's super out of tune. Whether it's you or not, whether you know it's you or not, but you hear it being out of tune, you're like, hey, can we do this for me so I can hear where I fit in this? Hey, can we do this thing again for me so I can figure out how I can contribute better?
That's clever.
Isn't that so good? I try to apply that to so many parts of my life. Like,
what is like? How have you applied it? In what ways? I mean, I have a couple of thoughts on one, but what is?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, chamber music, of course, but like, now you're making me think and like about things I do.
I could throw one out there if you want. If you want to mull it over.
So most recently, I definitely was having some issues with a leadership change in the it's called my shop job. So it's like the photography and videography that I'm doing with the unit. That's what they call my shop job. So if you're in the Army band, like you're a musician, so you play whatever instrument you play. Plus you do another job that helps the band run, because we're completely self-standing. We do everything within the band. So my shop job is in the public affairs office, and so we do all the social media, photography, videography stuff. So relatively recently had a leadership change, and I was not vibing very well with my leader. And at some point, like I felt like I was being super direct with like what I needed, but maybe I was not. So I requested a meeting and mediation, or a meeting with him, with someone else, another one of my leaders, to be in the room to help mediate, so that I could be like, here's my direct thing. I think I'm being direct, but if I'm not, someone can like catch me and be like, no, you're not being direct. You know, like the communication just wasn't happening. And so it was like, can someone be there to like try to help find where that breakdown's happening? but I entered that meeting being like, okay, I've gone and reflected on what I've been doing, and here's where I feel like I am falling short that's contributing to get us to where we are right now. So like I didn't go in there being like, well you.
Yeah.
It's like, because that's not gonna be productive at all. And there's two, in any kind of relationship, there are two people and there are two stories and there are two different things happening, right? So like if I just go in there and be like, you're wrong, like, no, they're right in their life, like to them, like I'm doing my thing, he's probably like, I'm doing my thing, so like I went in there being like, okay, here's where I feel like I'm falling short, here's how I think I can do better. So it's not exactly like, can we do this again for me, but like starting something with like not the blame game, just being like, I know this is where I'm faulted here, this is what I plan to do better, and then going into like, here's what I need from you.
I feel like you're giving relationship advice right now. I mean, you are. That's
this
totally...
This is boss advice.
Yeah, exactly. Boss bitch right here. You're getting it. Yeah, I really like that a lot. Like you said, not playing the blame game and like pointing your finger at, hey, you keep doing this, you keep doing that.
Yeah.
And once again, like I said before, like you're being accountable, you're taking ownership,
Yeah.
Like,
now let me tell you, like, to be super transparent and perfect, like, no, I don't do that all the time. And like sometimes it takes me longer than I am, like, I'm a little ashamed. Sometimes I'm a little ashamed to admit like how long it took me to get to those points. But like in any given little relationship, but like I think the important thing is just to be able to get there and like grow from those conversations and experiences.
Totally. Yeah. Oh my God. You are dropping some bombs, Natalie. You are dropping some bombs.
I wish they'd let me do that, like I would so bad to get in a helicopter and just like hit the red button. It's probably not how it happens, but I did get to shoot a pistol a couple weeks ago. That was super cool. I got to qualify on this pistol and it was like not expected for that week, but it got to happen and I was really excited.
Was that the photos I saw on like Instagram?
No, that was just me shooting with some friends. But like, so in the Army we qualify on our rifle every year. So you go out to a range and there's pop-up targets and it's like you've got 40 targets and 40 bullets and like you're getting as many as you can out of 40, goal being 40 out of 40. Officers though qualify on why did I just forget it? It's a pistol. Officers qualify on pistols. And so the band, so this is like an example of like, I am a soldier. The band was tasked to run the range for the officers in our battalion. I know that's a lot of jargon that probably doesn't make sense, but that's it, groups of people. So the band went out and we were all given a job to make this range run so that these officers could show up, shoot the weapon at the targets, and go away once they've qualified. My job at this range was to be the combat lifesaver. So I'm certified as a combat lifesaver. A lot of soldiers are, and that's just like there are not a whole lot of medics in like a group of people. It's like the only way I can think to explain it. So we get qualified to be able to put a tourniquet on until the medic can get there. So I was there as the combat lifesaver just in case something happened, with very little chance that anything's actually going to happen on these ranges. Everyone's very safe. The safety is a huge thing. So, all these officers showing up. We're out there for 2 days, not total, we didn't stay the night. I did get to go home and sleep in my bed. So we were out there one day, and we went back out there the next day. And I'm mostly just kind of sitting in the van because my job only happens if something if shit hit the fan, you know. So I'm like, I brought my computer. I was, you know, editing some videos and doing some things, and until my computer died, and then I was listening to podcasts and like doing things. So just waiting for the range to be over, and then they're like, we have tons of extra ammo, like the band can qualify. And I was like, well, that's super cool. So I got to go out and like actually shoot the pop-up targets and like get a qualification. So I get to wear another badge on my uniform, which I get really excited about because I like to show off my bling.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's some cool opportunities that are like not musically related at all. When I first got here, there was a re-enlistment, and when you re-enlist, you kind of get to do cool things. A lot you can request kind of off the wall stuff, right? So the people that were re-enlisting were like, I want to ride in a Chinook, which is a really big helicopter, like. And so then they're like, cool, the people who are re-enlisting and like involved in the ceremony are definitely going, and then there are X number of slots left for anyone else who wants to go. And I was like, excuse me, what? I can just put my name on this piece of paper and then I get to go get on the helicopter?
Oh, that's badass.
And they were like, yeah. And I was like, this is not real life, right? Like that, you're kidding. I just like, no way. There's no way I just get to put my name right here and then go get on that big old helicopter.
Yeah.
That's totally what it was. I got to go ride this Chinook and it was incredible. It was like, it was one of the coolest things I've ever done. I was so pumped. Now
how loud was it?
Oh, it's loud, man. You can't hear anything, you know. And safety is a thing, so you have to get a safety brief on like how to walk to the like how to approach the bird, and you have to like wear your ACH and you know gloves and ear pro because like even if you're not a musician, you should still protect your ears. But we are musicians, so we really should protect our ears.
That's right.
So like it's loud though. It's very loud. You can't hear anything, but it was so cool.
I love that. How high up does it go?
Don't ask me technical things about those things. High.
What's
in
the
air.
What's the diameter of the wheels and the propeller?
I sat down, I buckled in, I got to look out the window. And then the really cool thing is like we live in the desert, but like there's mountains, so like watching the mountains while we were flying.
That's beautiful.
We like flew out to this really scenic area, did the re-enlistment ceremony there. It was awesome. Like I got to watch some of my battle buddies re-enlist in the army for another term. Like it was super cool.
That's awesome. I love this. This is so fascinating. I mean, you're doing such interesting things, you know. You have all these.
It's super cool.
What about the shooting? Like, how did that go? Did you hit all your targets and stuff when it would pop up?
Yeah. So on the pistol, there's 30 that you 30 out of 30 is the most you can get. 20. Shoot, what is qualified? 23, I think is qualified. Maybe 21 is qualified. Look at me. I don't shoot the pistol. I shot 23.
Oh, yeah.
Did I shoot 22? I know I'm a marksman in the pistol, and I get to wear that badge.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. I would love to have that experience.
It's so cool.
Yeah, when I was 19, I got to go to a shooting range one time, and I wasn't prepared for it. I shot like this revolver, I think it is, like the cowboy guns, you know?
Yeah.
And then I also shot a 9mm, which blew my mind how heavy it is.
Yeah.
And I remember my hand just like shooting back like that, like jerking, and I wasn't ready.
Recoil.
Yeah.
I'm by no means like an amazing shot, but like I really love doing it. I have a great time. I love going to the range and like not always army ranges. Like I love just getting the opportunity to go to a range where there are weapons and shoot them. I don't own any because I live on post and in the barracks, and we're not allowed to have weapons in residences on post. But one day when I live off post, I do want to like have my own weapons that I can just like take out to the ranges and shoot at targets, because there's something about trigger therapy, man.
Totally.
It's good stuff.
That's the thing. I think with like all of us, there's something that each one of us needs as an individual. Like you said, like trigger therapy, something that releases whatever it is we need to release, you know, whether like some people, like I've been toying with the idea of getting a boxing, what do you call it? Like
like a bag.
A punching bag. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like having that sort of, you know, or some people go jogging, or some people like, you know, there's whatever it is. And that's so interesting. I love that.
I think the thing about shooting for me though isn't even just like that I'm destroying anything, because I don't think about it that at all. It's like it's a high level of concentration that it takes.
Totally.
And like, the breathing. So it's like, it can be really meditative because you're like between each trigger squeeze, like there are fundamentals of shooting, which like when you just like before you for anyone that like hasn't been around weapons, you're just like, oh no, you just go up there and shoot it. Like, no, there are like fundamentals to like what your body should be doing, how you should be holding whatever weapon is in your hand, like this, knowing the weapon, being safe and like aware of what's around you. Like there's just this super high level of concentration. There's no room to think about anything else, so like, and then there's like the pulling the trigger and like seeing where you hit and like, so that's fun. There's the fun aspect to it also. So it's like, I love it.
I love what you just explained right there. Like that whole process of like breathing and like, and being so present with what you're doing and knowing like, that's so fascinating. I've heard that before with marksmanship in regards to bow and arrow, like shooting.
Oh
like,
yeah.
bow and arrow.
I've never shot one, but I've also heard that.
I had one when I was a kid, and it wasn't like, it was like the tips were just like rounded,
You had safe. They were making you be safe.
Well, I will say, if you were on the other end of this, it wouldn't have ended well.
Live a little.
Yeah. Oh man. my neighbors.
Totally kidding.
My neighbors, they're very lucky. Like, I was not very. My aim was not very good, and I feel fortunate that no one got hurt.
That is a plus.
I don't want to cut this off because I'm enjoying the hell out of this, but my wonderful girlfriend made dinner tonight, so
you just need to go eat that. You also tell her hello.
I will. Yeah, Natalie, I'm so excited about everything we talked about today, and
I had a good time. This is fun. We should have started like a separate podcast of like shoot the shit podcasts, and like, you and I just talking, and no one will ever watch it because I'm boring, but like.
Well, first of all, like with this whole thing, you're not boring, without a doubt. And second of all, clearly with shoot the shit, that means we're gonna start by shooting targets. And, like, that's the beginning.
Oh God, yeah. Well, I don't know about that. Maybe we should reconceptualize what we're gonna do before we do that.
That's fine. We'll get it figured out. But I want to thank you so much for coming on here with me. This has been
thanks for having me. This was a good time. I love getting to chat with my friends, especially about what I've been doing lately. Like it's a new and different life, but I'm loving it.
That's awesome. I love it, and yeah, and we miss you. I miss you, and I'm just so happy to hear like where you are and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, we gotta plan our next project though. It's been a minute.
I'm always ready, always game, and
Let's do it.
whatever you got planned and rigged and ready to go.
You know me, I've always got some sort of project up my sleeve.